Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Parkinson, for joining me yet again. And
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
and today we're going to talk about Macbeth. So Macbeth begins with the three weird sisters. So who or what are the three weird sisters?
Well, that is a fantastic question because, first of all, because it opens with them, which puts them in the foreground of our imaginations right away. And what are they? Who are they? Is a question that I don't think the play answers definitively for us. However, there are some things that they could be, right? For one thing, they're only named witches one time, and that's in self-reference. One of them is telling a story about someone telling her to anoint the witch, and that's the only time they're actually referred to as witches. So are they witches? Well, based on the things that they're doing, yes, they're witches. I mean, they're conjuring, they're using various parts of animals to make a cauldron a little later in the play. At this point, they are talking about when they're going to meet Macbeth again. And so they could be seen as representative of the three fates is another way that they've been read, as just soothsayers, as very strange country women, that they could be any number of those things. And their status is even more complicated by the fact that when Banquo and Macbeth run into them, they aren't sure whether they say you should be women, but your beards indicate otherwise. And so they're also, in terms of gender, not a clear picture, right? So to me, they are almost an emblem of the play's transgressive qualities. Because first scene, we're out on the heath, we're talking to these three weird sisters, and they're speaking in equivocation. They're saying lies and truths at the same time. And foul is fair and fair is foul. When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won, these are all sort of contradictory half-truths, equivocations, that they, I think, represent the transgressive nature of the entirety of the play. The fact that the whole play is full of these border crossings over country lines, crossings over physical lines, crossings over moral and ethical and religious lines, and lines that have to do with tradition and society, social norms, everything in the play virtually is transgressed. Every border, every standard is pretty much transgressed. And I think that's why they're there. So symbolically, I think they represent transgression. I think literally they represent a thing that King James was extremely interested in. And the play was written around 1607 to 1609, when we know that James was on the throne. So James I was extremely interested in witches. He wrote a tract called The Demonology, which was about hunting, detecting, and punishing witches. And he was a firm believer that they existed and they were a very real existential threat for him. So that's the short answer, believe it or not. There's a lot that can be said about these three women.
Okay. And you mentioned they use the words fair and foul.
Mm-hmm.
The first time we meet Macbeth, he uses those same words.
Yes. Yes.
So is Shakespeare kind of connecting the two?
Oh, I believe so. And so there's one way in which these witches we know that they're actually there because Banquo confirms their presence. So they're not necessarily projections of Macbeth's mind on a literal level, but they're also, in addition to being what seems like real figures, right, that these two men see, they could also be seen as witches of the mind, witches of Macbeth's mind specifically, that he's projecting outward something that he kind of wants to hear, and then getting that delivered to him in this form. So I think they can be both things at once, both kind of psychological projections and actually strange women who conjure spirits on
That
the
the supernatural has a reality.
Yes. Yes, I think so.
Okay. And can you describe a little bit who Banquo is?
Yes. Well, Banquo is Macbeth's friend at the start of the play. They're together. They're coming together out of the battle. Banquo is thought to be an ancestor of James the First, and so his importance in the play is also political to the time that the play was written and played, because he is portrayed favorably. And it is also said by the Weird Sisters that you won't be a king, Banquo, but you will be father to kings. You'll have children who are kings. And if that's indeed true, then the later revelation that they give to Macbeth that there will be this line of kings, and the line of kings doesn't include any Macbeth Juniors in it. um, that it is essentially, people who look like Banquo, is a way of a nod toward James saying, here's the series of kings that lead up to you yourself, because the end image is a mirror. And so if it was being shown in court, then that would have reflected James's own face. And so that's one thing that one function that Banquo fills, and also just kind of his identity is another thing, as an important actor in the battle, and as a kind of moral center. He sees the witches. He could be said to have been tempted by them, to perhaps hurry along his own fate, but he doesn't do that. And in fact, he worries almost immediately about what Macbeth is going to do with this information. So
He's almost a counterpoint to Macbeth.
I think so. And he ends up being a very frightening specter to Macbeth because of that, because Macbeth knows that he's got more scruples than Macbeth himself has.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about who King Duncan is?
Well, the way that the play portrays Duncan is that he is a virtuous, gentle, decent, deserving sovereign, and a good man who, when he is murdered by Macbeth, will probably go straight to heaven, right? That's one part of him. But also historically, Duncan is portrayed as not having been all that great of a leader. And actually, Macbeth in history rules very successfully for quite a number of years. So this play, it doesn't completely reflect the Holinshed's chronicle histories about how all of this actually went down in Scotland. But yes, Duncan is, I think, representative. He's a kind of father figure, right? Because he is referred to actually by Lady Macbeth when she goes in to spread blood around. It's a really, really gory scene, but or unseen, because we don't see it. That she reminds him of her father, and and he seems to be like a little older than Macbeth as well, and so I think maybe a father figure.
Okay. And then we do often, like you mentioned, we meet Lady Macbeth.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe a little bit who she is and some of the qualities that she has?
Well, Lady Macbeth is terrifying. She comes along when we see her receiving the letter from Macbeth, giving her the news of the Weird Sisters and of his triumphs on the battlefield. And she's reading the letter aloud, and this is what the letter says. They met me in the day of success, and I have learned by the perfectest report they have more in them than they have more in them than mortal knowledge. When I burnt in desire to question them further, they made themselves air, into which they vanished. While as I stood wrapped in the wonder of it, came missives from the king, who all hailed me Thane of Cawdor, by which title before these weird sisters saluted me, and referred me to the coming on of time with Hail King that shalt be. This have I thought good to deliver thee, my dearest partner of greatness, that thou mightst not lose the dues of rejoicing by being ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. Lay it to thy heart and farewell. And she immediately responds with, Glamis thou art, and Cawdor shalt be, what thou art promised. Yet do I fear thy nature is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. So she's saying, look, these prophecies are coming true. You are Glamis, you will be Cawdor, because you're the one who took him out and he was a traitor. And I'm afraid that you're too kind to see that there's actually a really quick way for you to get to that third title, which is murder. You know, you're too full of he's too full of the milk of human kindness for her. And she is a formidable force, and she knows how to manipulate Macbeth psychologically and to use his masculinity against him in ways that just sort of pin his arm behind his back. And he goes ahead with this plan to kill the king.